Welcome back, family, to the Truth Be Told podcast, where I'll be telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help us, God. Now, where were we? Yes, we were talking about hypocrites. Now, I'll tell you the truth, right? Too many people claim that they don't like or align with the very things that they find themselves entertaining or actively involved in. As I mentioned in the previous episode, we often find ourselves criticizing the very things in others that we refuse to see within ourselves. So, if you haven't watched the last episode, I suggest you check that one out before you tap into this one. As I mentioned in the previous episode, more times than not, people find themselves claiming they don't like one thing, but assimilating with it in another way, right? So we discussed different power dynamics and how people claim to not like how people in positions of power operate, yet when given the same opportunities, they act in oftentimes the same ways, if not more egregious, right? But let's talk about other situations where we find ourselves complaining about one thing, yet it's the very thing that we need to look at within ourselves. For instance, when we're talking about someone being greedy or insatiable, kind of that bottomless pit energy where they're never satisfied with anything that they get, right? We all know people like that, but have you ever stopped to evaluate yourself and see if you possess those same characteristics? Don't worry, I'll wait. Or many of us have been guilty of complaining or criticizing about people who find themselves in a codependent or a more needy type of energy, when in all actuality, many people need that external validation. Many people often depend on others to thrive off of, depend on other people's energy or group dynamics to kind of survive and sustain their own energy. Now, if you know me, which I'm sure you do by now, you know I'm usually talking about something deeper, right? So, can we go deeper? So let's discuss, shall we, the different isms or classifications or groups of people that we find ourselves criticizing when in all actuality, the main thing most people want is to have a sense of belonging, a sense of connection and community. Yet there's different classifications that we claim we don't like, but if it befits you and what is more beneficial to you, you find yourself aligning with it unknowingly when it's typically the same energy, right? Because these labels or classifications tend to exclude people or marginalize certain groups, which we claim we don't align with, right? But in all actuality, when given the opportunity, many of us will align with certain groups that benefit our needs or our perspectives, or that just make us feel accepted, a sense of family or community, or make us feel whole in some type of way. Now, let's discuss, shall we, the different groups of people or classifications that we find ourselves criticizing because they often seclude or marginalize different groups of people, when in reality, that's something we all participate in on varying levels. So let's go over a few examples, shall we? So let's discuss, shall we, the different isms, because typically we all have very strong opinions regarding these topics. So, for instance, racism, classism, colorism, feminism, right? All these are different topics that we all have strong opinions on and we could talk about endlessly, right? We could go back and forth all day about our different opinions regarding these different topics. However, what we could all agree on, or should, is that these are only divisive tactics that are meant to seclude us from each other. At the end of the day, as I stated earlier, we all yearn for a sense of community and a sense of belonging. So for us to continue in these divisive tactics, is simply asinine at this point. We need to honestly learn to better discern how we're receiving information from those in power and how we so mindlessly digest it all, right? So, how does this become hypocritical? Well, let me share with you. So, while you might be obviously against racism, you might fully operate within classism, right? So, while you might understand that discriminating against a certain group of people or a person simply based on their race is wrong, you might mindlessly practice or align yourself with classism by looking down on others who you deem to have less than you. So then it becomes not about race, but more about class. Or if people don't look a certain way, fill a certain role, have a certain title, you don't align yourselves with them. You might not overtly say those things, but it shows within your actions, right? We're all guilty of this. As I said, we all want to belong, so we find ourselves aligning with different groups of people, if not consciously, then subconsciously. So often we judge and criticize others for what they think, see, do, and feel, and what they believe and how they operate. But more times than not, many of us fail to do the introspection needed to see where we could align better and what we claim our morals and values are. So while you might be conscious enough to not seclude one group for whatever reason, sometimes on the back end, you may be doing it subconsciously to another group. There's a saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. That requires a sense of community. However, is your community actually aligned with forward movement and advancement? What are these different communities or groups we find ourselves aligned with actually doing for the forward movement and advancement of not only ourselves and the group, but humanity as a whole? I mean, what are we really doing, right? I will always be the one to say the ancestors have done so much more with so much less. We have more access to resources, information, different people, that there is no reason that we shouldn't have advanced ourselves and humanity further than where we are now. There's no reason we should still be operating within these outdated systems, classism, racism, feminism, right? We should all be seeing each other as humans. Why are we worried about humanism? Why are we all worried about positivity, forward movement, and advancement of everything and everyone? So I challenge you to ask yourself, the people, places, and things you find yourself aligned with, are they really what you claim to be of your moral code and standard? What does your code of conduct say about you? What does your integrity look like? What does your integrity look like when there's no one watching? Are you accountable to the things you do and say when you're alone and within your group dynamics? If you're not willing to stand in front of a crowd and say all the things that you would say behind closed doors or within these different group dynamics, or operate in the ways that you do when you're in these different situations in front of the world to see, what are you really doing? Who are you really? It's time for us to all do the introspection, whether you call it shadow work, whether you call it healing, whatever you like to label it. It's time for us to all look within to see where we could grow and advance ourselves so that we can positively affect the groups we find ourselves in, the familial situations we find ourselves in, jobs, careers, different paths and purposes that we are to align with. We cannot do that if we don't align with our highest selves. So it's high time for us to put away the different divisive tactics, No longer should it matter what skin color you are, what shade of brown you are, what title you hold at a certain job, whether you have a degree or not, whether you have children or not, what city you choose to live in, what side of the tracks you find yourself in, nor the type of job you have, the money you make, the social engagements you find yourself in, the connections you have, or even the material items you possess. None of that should matter. It shouldn't matter your race, your religion. It should not matter where you come from. We should be focused on where we're trying to go. As we know, history loves to repeat itself, but we can do something about that. It's time for us to take control of the storylines of our lives and our part in history. I mean, what will future generations say about us when it comes time for them to study our time, right? It's looking a little questionable if you ask me. So, what actions can you take right now to be less divisive and more inclusive? How can you educate yourself to become the best person you can be within your group or family dynamic, within your community or your different career sector? I hate to be the one to tell you this, but if your focus isn't on aligning with your individual purpose and the different steps that you can take to get there to fulfill that sad purpose while you're on this beautiful planet, you're going about it all wrong. And unfortunately, we have been tricked and intentionally bamboozled into doing everything but that. So while you're focused on your favorite sports team or what's trending on social media, the latest reality TV shows, life is passing you by and your purpose along with it. As we know, we all have the power of choice as humans, right? So you could choose to remain in this energy, focusing on all the things that keep us divided, or we could unilaterally decide to focus on all the things that unite us. As I said, we all want the same things in life. We all want to better ourselves. We all want better opportunities for ourselves and our children and the different generations that come after that. We all want to live a good, prosperous life. We want a sense of community. We want love and belonging. We're not that much different at all. We just have to come to a space where we're looking at things from a higher perspective. It's high time we all focus on purpose, positivity, and prosperity instead of petty squabbles. We all have our own individual purpose. We just have to align with the path to get us there. That's what the people in power don't want you to know. So while they operate in their power and create unity within their different sectors of operating and being between the people on their level, the upper echelon, the 1%, whatever have you, right? They get you to remain in this low vibrational energy where you're debating over politics, classes, religion, sports teams. There's so many different things to divide you. So while you may be consciously aware that classism isn't a good thing, you're still bickering over what religion is right, which political party is right, what country is better, which war tactic is better, when in reality, all it is a setup for division. What we do know is united we stand, divided we fall. So let's not be hypocritical. Let's stand on the things that we claim to stand for. If you're a protector of women, be a protector of women, no matter the cost. If you say you believe in human rights, then you believe in all humans having a life full of prosperity, peace, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So stand on that. There should be no mitigating factors to that. Every human being with a pulse deserves that. Very simple, regardless of race, religion, political standing, class, titles, jobs, whatever have you. None of that should matter. We are all humans looking for the best human experience while we're here. So, why would we be divisive and try to disrupt anyone creating that for self? As I said, again, let's not be hypocritical. Be about what you claim to be about. Stand on the things that you say. It's more about doing than speaking at this point. We're at a place in history now, I don't know if you can tell, where we need more people about the business of doing instead of just speaking on what they claim to believe, think, and say. Now is a time of action rather than just words. So, how do we do this? It might sound like mission impossible, right? But it's really not. At the end of the day, we all want the same things. So, don't look at it like, how do we heal the world? How do we create world peace? It seems like such a tall task when, in all actuality, it starts from within. If we could get everyone or most people to simply commit to not contributing any negativity or negative energy into a person or a space, we would be so much better. If we all focused on our individual introspection instead of inspecting the lives of others, we would see how we could contribute our best selves to the world as a whole. Now imagine that if everyone or most people stopped remaining in a low vibrational energy and were committed to becoming their best, highest version of self, how much better do you think our communities would be, our families, and society as a whole? If we have most people operating out of their highest, best selves. That's how we heal the world, one person at a time. But it takes us going within instead of looking outward. It takes us doing the introspection instead of spending our time inspecting other people's lives to find fault in what they're doing, thinking, and believing. The journey of introspection can be a difficult one, right? It can feel very isolating, but there are times where we need to be in isolation. Too much noise, outside stimulus, other people's thoughts, ideas, beliefs, and negative projections on us is what distracts us from doing the internal work. We must take the time to see ourselves clearly, to understand what we actually believe and what we don't, what we actually align with and what we don't, who we actually align with and who we don't. This is all a part of introspection that nobody likes doing because it requires hard work, dedication, authenticity, and accountability. It takes you to look at yourself and ask yourself the hard questions. How have I been hypocritical? Where have I said I believe in one thing and I have acted and done another thing? How have I treated others poorly? How have I treated self poorly? And most importantly, what areas of self am I neglecting to assess further? What emotions am I refusing to feel, acknowledge, and address? And why? At the end of the day, it is our job to do our part to advance society and humanity as a whole while we are here. So why not focus on that? It starts as one small act of kindness here, a level of introspection there, and sometimes it's going to require you to bite your tongue in situations where you have may acted out differently before. As I said, a different level of accountability, a very different level of introspection, but it's definitely needed. So often we find ourselves criticizing those in positions of power and how they act within those positions, right? Because they are, at the end of the day, supposed to be serving humanity as a whole, right? However, what we have to understand is many times we act just the way they do on a smaller scale. It's just that our behaviors, actions, thoughts, and beliefs are not on the public stage for everyone to see. As I said, we can all be hypocritical at times. So if you want better leadership and more integral people in positions of power, that would mean that more people would have to become integral, would it not? As we know, the leadership always changes over, but if we don't have people operating in their highest self, being integral in the different ways in which they operate, what are the chances that we're going to get someone in office in positions of power, whether locally in a government scale or globally, right, over nations, in a space where they're actually integral and worried about humanity, where they're worried about people, where they're worried about the environment, where they're worried about the world as a whole versus their own secret agendas. Chances are it'll be slim to none. We need everyone doing their part, operating in their highest form of self, doing the things that you can do individually to affect positive change around the world. So, no, not everyone can make laws to change things systemically, but you can do things within your family dynamic, within your communities, within your jobs, and the different areas that you can physically affect personally. And what I know to be true is that effect in itself will ripple out and affect others. So, one kind act here will affect someone's day, they're kinder to other people, etc., etc., etc. You never know how you becoming the best version of yourself will affect someone else and cause them to go within, heal, and make the changes as well. So instead of focusing on seclusion, we need to focus on inclusion. Instead of focusing on division, we need to focus on diversity and unity. That's the only way we get to advance ourselves into a different atmosphere and environment on all different levels. That's the only way we're going to get to see ourselves, our communities, society, humanity, and the world as a whole in the highest version that it could possibly be. As always, this is definitely a conversation we should expound upon further. I'm curious to hear your thoughts about it, so please drop them down in the comments below. And if you haven't done so already, please like this video. If you haven't subscribed by now, what are you waiting for? Subscribe so you can stay in tune with this vibe, okay? As I always say, truth without love is brutality, and love without truth is hypocrisy. And as we know, fools multiply when wise men or women are silent. So we mustn't be silent. We must tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, even when it hurts. So until next time we talk, peace, y'all.